Well, for the next installment of Unraveling the Mysteries, we head to Montague County, where a boy has been missing for nearly 7 years and a close family friend could be responsible. This is the disappearance of Caleb Diehl.
The last time I saw him, he was sitting on the end of the couch, putting his shoes on.
I have no idea what really happened. I have no idea. Caleb was adventurous, fearless. He climbed everything, was afraid of nothing. He rode dirt bikes when he was 5. He did everything he could to keep up with his older brothers and sisters. He was sweet, very caring, loving, affectionate.
He was always trying to keep up with us. He was the baby, mama's baby, but he definitely never acted like he was the baby. He was always hanging out with us. He was a gift giver. He gave the best gifts. He was super sweet.
It definitely just felt like a normal day. It was a weekend that he came up and he was doing his thing. We were doing our thing and we did some things together, but mostly it just seemed like any other day, any other weekend. It was the weekend and then he went missing the Monday after the weekend. And the Monday after the weekend, I was at work. So Courtney was home with him though.
I was about to head back to Bedford to our apartment, and the last time I saw him, he was sitting on the end of the couch, putting his shoes on. And I asked him, I said, "Are you coming home tonight? Because you have school tomorrow. You can't miss any more school." He said, "Yes, but I'm going to see Christian." He was going to see his friend. And he was real somber, didn't look up at me, and was tying his shoes, and that was the last time I saw him.
Caleb was pretty much used to doing his thing and didn't report every single thing he did all the time to us. He was 18 and pretty independent.
And I had to work the next day, so when I got up, I just assumed that he had come home and gone to school, or it wasn't anything out of the norm for me to get up and go to work and not notice him there.
And I worked also. I worked 12-hour shifts that Monday and that Tuesday. And so Tuesday, I actually got a call from while I was at work from one of his counselors asking where he was. And at that point, I didn't even realize that he hadn't gone back. And, I told her that, I should be seeing him that evening or talking to him. I had already tried to call numerous times and his phone went straight to voicemail. But I just talked to the counselor and told her that, I talked to him as soon as I could about making sure he didn't miss any more school. And then I got home that night and called Courtney and just made some phone calls, and she hadn't heard from him either. So the next morning I was off, and that's when we started really looking and calling his friends on Wednesday morning. After we called all his friends and knew nobody had seen him, including the person that he was supposedly going to see on Monday, that's when later that afternoon, we went to the police station and reported him missing. The first week, not a lot was done at all because he was 18 and
we called everybody station that we knew. Anything leading to what he might have been or who he was seeing.
Did, but I don't believe on the behalf of the police station. And nothing was really looked into too much. Until after that weekend, the following weekend, when he still wasn't seen, and we knew he would have come home if he could have that weekend because of the fact that it was Easter weekend. We were celebrating birthdays, and he knew that we were having a family gathering that weekend on Sunday. And when he didn't show up then, it was after that week that the police really started investigating and looking into things.
My name is Kevin Benton, and I'm currently the county judge for Montague County, Texas, after 31 years in law enforcement. And I'd been retired for a short time, a few months, and the sheriff's office and the district attorney asked me if I would come in and review this case file on the missing Caleb Diehl boy, and I did. Following that, ultimately then I was asked if I would reopen, I guess you would say. I don't know anybody's closed the case, okay, but to rejuvenate the case and start working on it. And I agreed. And so I began working on the missing persons case at that time, which would have been 2017, probably October of 2017. As with any case that has grown cold, you gather all the reports from everything that originally occurred. You review them, and you know, any questions that you've got, you go back and you basically start back at the beginning. With this particular case, met with all the family, re-interviewed witnesses, and then ultimately, one of the things that piqued my interest was the original investigation. Ricky Howard, based on everything that was in the files, became a person of interest in this missing person case pretty quickly. There was a burn pit, if you will, out on one of the Howard ranches. And in that burn pit were many things, and 3 computers had been burned up and a telephone, which just interested me. And so based on that, I then went and met with Howard's ex-wife. And she was actually, they were married at the time that Caleb Diehl went missing. And so I interviewed her and I asked her if there were any other computers in the house that Mr. Howard would have access to. She said, yes, actually there was a desktop computer that they kept in the family for quite some time. And then when she and Howard separated and divorced, she'd bought a new computer. The old one was in a closet. I obtained it and kept it at that point because I didn't have anything specific to search in it. I just knew if we were burning computers, I wanted it. Ultimately, and this gets long, you know, I knew that Ricky Howard had been convicted in federal court for bank fraud back early 2000s, had gone to the federal penitentiary for I think 46 months. One of the things that became very interesting was that in reviewing the files, law enforcement had the missing person case. They worked until they had no leads. And then, probably a year and a half later, Caleb's mother found, hidden back in a closet, she found some items that were, there was a tape recorder, there was a clock radio that had a covert camera in it, there were handwritten notes in Ricky Howard's handwriting that were polygraph questions to do with sexual assaults of children. There was a manuscript on how to defeat a polygraph. On the tape recorder was Ricky Howard's voice. He was asking the polygraph questions that he had written down and then would pause as though he was practicing a polygraph. And of course, I wondered at that point, why was he practicing polygraphs back in that day? We're talking about 2011 is the dates that were on the paperwork where he was using. Ultimately learned that during the original investigation for the bank fraud, FBI agent David Burns, he discovered in that investigation multiple young men that had made allegations of being sexually assaulted by Ricky Howard. The federal prosecutors didn't have a nexus to charge him with those sexual assaults, but he left them all in his reports. And so when that case went before the federal judge, he was convicted of the bank fraud, and then the federal judge also sentenced him to 2 years of sex offender counseling when he came out of the federal pen. And then when we learned all of that, we knew why he was practicing polygraphs. He was trying to take polygraphs back in that day from his federal release. At that point, we were able to get permission through a federal judge to access those documents and learned a lot of information about Ricky Howard and his sexual interest in young boys. Based on everything that we got out of those documents, I then was able to get search warrants for that first computer, took it to the FBI's lab, they processed it, and it had hundreds and hundreds of images of child pornography, all male. In that, there were also multiple pictures of Caleb that were not qualified in state court as child pornography, just many, many, many pictures of Caleb from the time he was young for several years. Some of them while he was sleeping, just multiple pictures of this boy. We ultimately then ran another search warrant on a house on one of the ranches that Howard had that he was staying in after he and his wife had separated. And I guess I need to back up. At this point, Howard had been convicted of felon in possession of firearms. And so when I became involved in this case, he was already in the state pen for those charges. We do a search warrant on the house where he'd been staying. And in there we find documentation where he's purchased another laptop, but the laptop's not there. So in searching for that, ultimately, myself and Investigator Hamilton with the DA's office traveled to Tennessee, where his daughter lives, and we gain a laptop computer out there. Not the same laptop that was purchased, but a laptop. We're able to obtain it. We do a search warrant on it, and in that computer is, again, hundreds of images of child porn, but also in that are images of Mr. Howard, Ricky Howard, molesting Caleb Diehl. And so I guess with all that, we had a missing persons case that we were moving forward with, and then it took a turn, and we ended up with a child pornography investigation, and then that took a turn, which gave us a child molestation case on Caleb Diehl. Ultimately, those cases were taken to a federal prosecutor.
A Bowie man is sitting in the Wichita County Jail awaiting his preliminary hearing in federal court on charges of recording sexually explicit conduct with a minor who went missing in Montague County in March of 2015.
The hearing for 59-year-old Ricky Diehl Howard is set for March 11th in the U.S. District Court in Wichita Falls. Howard was arrested on aggravated sexual assault charges in 2015 during an investigation of the disappearance of 18-year-old Caleb Diehl of Nocona.
We all went to school together as kids at Prairie Valley. So, and Josh and Caleb, they're the same ages as Chris and Trace, who are Ricky's children. So we just ended up being really good friends as families and doing a lot of things together. They rode four-wheelers, we rode dirt bikes. We all enjoyed paintballing. We went on some family vacations together. So we basically grew up with them. And Ricky was my dad's really good friend. So it just happened that, we were friends with the kids. So it just worked out that way. It came as a shock at first, definitely. I mean, after Caleb's disappearance, there was things that led up to us realizing that there was a possibility that these things could have happened. But before there was proof, it was really hard to believe that something like that could have happened. But
yeah, we didn't know about all the past things at all. I mean, there was
the past accusations.
And Ricky was well known and well liked for the most part in the community, and had a lot of business owner friends, other friends that made him seem credible, didn't make it seem like it was possible that he could be the kind of person that we've now learned that he was. There was so many things right after he disappeared that immediately, it didn't take more than a couple days for us to suspect him because of the phone calls Caleb made, the last ones he made, the things that Ricky told us when Caleb first went missing that didn't make
Ricky
sense.
had an alibi for Caleb disappearing. He told us that Caleb had gone to Oklahoma to work for some girl that he had met that weekend's uncle doing some work. But we knew that it didn't make any sense because Caleb knew he couldn't miss any more school. And Caleb wanted to graduate high school. And so he told us that he was planning on being gone for 2 weeks. Just seemed like he was trying to buy himself some time.
Well, the challenge with this case is that he just simply vanished. He was staying with a sister down in the Metroplex, and he contacted Howard because his pickup was broke down. Howard travels down there to try to fix his truck, can't get it fixed, hires a towing company to bring it back to Nocona to be repaired in the shop here in Nocona, Texas. The Caleb Diehl, at that point, travels back here as well to stay the weekend. The last he's seen, well, actually Howard loans him a pickup to drive, one of his work trucks. And so Caleb's driving this pickup that belongs to Howard, and he's here for 3 days and then just simply vanishes. We've got telephone calls back and forth between Ricky Howard's telephone and Caleb's telephone. The original investigators did a search with the towers, and the last phone call is going to be I'd have to look at the records, but around 4:45 that afternoon on would be March the 30th. And the towers put both Caleb's phone and Ricky Howard's telephone in the vicinity of a shop in Nakona that Howard owned. Caleb's phone a short time later goes dead. Howard's phone, when they track it, is headed out of town towards one of his ranches out there, and then it goes dead. And Caleb was never seen or heard from again. I think it was 3 days later, the pickup, Caleb's mother reports him missing to the police. The pickup shows up in Ricky Howard's shop. But no Caleb.
Did he have an explanation, I guess, as to why the truck showed back up to his shop?
You know, what the original investigators, what their reports reveal is that he just simply said, you know, hey, he must be back, the truck is back.
I think it's possible that Caleb got to the point where he was tired of the relationship or whatever was going on. We found evidence that he could have been blackmailing him.
That he was going to tell. I believe he told him he was going to tell what happened to him, and the fact that I think Caleb believed that it had happened and could happen to other kids, and I think he threatened to tell. And Ricky didn't want to have to go through that. He thought he could solve his problem easily.
Former Nakona banker Ricky Diehl Howard has been sentenced in federal court to a maximum for sexual exploitation of a child. Thank you for joining us. I'm Daniela Hankey. 97th District Attorney Casey Paulhemus sent a statement to our newsroom saying that Judge Reed O'Connor sentenced Howard to 30 years this morning.
I'm going to say that Ricky Howard is certainly a suspect in the disappearance based on all of the circumstances that surround it. You know, Ricky Howard back originally failed a polygraph on this issue. The truck showing up, there's just many things. You know, he claims that he finds a telephone that night in his shop laying on the floor that's broken, and he throws it away. The day after the police get involved, Ricky Howard takes his own phone and takes the SIM card out of it and cuts it up with scissors, and then goes and gets another telephone. There's just, and I could go on and on. There's just many things that make Mr. Howard look suspicious.
What do you guys miss most about Caleb?
Just his presence. I just miss him being with us, a part of the family. It's not complete without Caleb. And it's just, there's a big hole missing. He was a special kid. And I hate not being able to know that not being able to see him become a man and see what he could do with his life.
We were all really, really close growing up. We were all best friends, so it's like not having your best friend anymore. It feels like there's a hole missing for sure. Just something missing all the time.
Now, if you have any information on Caleb's disappearance, call Montague County Crime Stoppers, the Nakona Police Department, or the Montague County District Attorney's Office.